Everyone, my name's Dave Rosenlund, and I'm going to be the host for today's webinar. This is a monthly series that we conduct here at ALM Works. So thank you for joining us today, this morning or this afternoon or wherever you are, especially in these unusual times. But we have a great topic today and a great speaker. Next slide, Eugene. So here's a quick agenda. I'm going to do a quick introduction. Eugene is the star of the show today, of course, and he's going to give a presentation and demo. And then we'll come back at the end for questions and answers. So pretty simple format, pretty simple agenda. A couple of housekeeping items. One, attendee microphones are turned off. We have over 60 people attending today. We know from experience that the barking dogs and other things that sometimes accidentally occur can be pretty distracting. So we'll keep your microphones turned off. We'll keep ours turned on when we speak. And we'll use the Q&A feature that some of you have already discovered at the bottom of the Zoom webinar screen. Queue up your questions as you think of them, as there's no reason to wait. We'll read them to Eugene or address them to the right person at the end of the webinar. And if for some reason we don't get to everyone's questions, don't worry, we'll follow up with you after the webinar. The only caveat there is if you choose to ask a question anonymously, which is an option that you have, we won't be able to follow up with you. So it's your choice whether you use the anonymous feature or not. And quick reminder, this is being recorded. We'll make it available to you in about a day or two after the webinar. On our YouTube channel so that you can find it as well as other resources about structure and the structure product family. I'll talk more about at the end, but we'll make it available to you just to rewatch or share with your colleagues after today's webinar. So many of you, I think, I recognize a lot of the names on the list of attendees today. I think you've been with ALM Works as a customer for some time. And if you had, you probably already know Eugene. Eugene is our business development lead, as it says here on the slide, but he's also the go-to product expert for structure. He's been with the company since structure was first introduced in 2011, almost 10 years now. And so he has a lot of in-field experience with structure, and he's going to help us today understand a new feature in structure called Effectors. And without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to Eugene.
All right. Hi, everyone. Thanks for the intro, Dave. Thanks, everyone, for joining. Just like most of you, I suppose, I'm working from home, so don't be surprised if you can hear some dog barks, birds chirps, and some other noises. But I hope that won't be a problem. All right. So today we're talking about effectors. It's a huge new feature for us that was released in Structure 6. And I wanted to start with a bit of background, some kind of retrospective that will give you some context why this feature was implemented and why it's important for us. I'll show how it works, and we'll talk about some future plans as well. So why effectors were created at all? Some of you who's been with us long enough may remember synchronizers. Those were an old mechanism for building automated structures. Basically, first you had just manual structures, and then synchronizers were created to allow you to create processes that would run in Jira in the background and update your structures if something changes in Jira. And it could work in the opposite direction. If something changed in structure, it could update some Jira fields, links, and some other Jira data. So similar to automation, but there was a big main difference. First of all, they would run continuously in the background, even when you didn't have the structure open, and they would react to changes other structures could make. The problem was that they could start interacting with each other, and you could get some unwanted results in the end. Some unwanted Jira data changes, for example. So it was really powerful, and it actually had some really cool features like status rollup, for example, that would update the parent status if your child statuses change. But with that power came the danger of messing up your data. So we came up with a better way to present Jira data in structures, and that was automation. So this feature is more, let's say, it's oriented more towards presenting Jira data. You can still make changes when you drag and drop things in structures, but everything happens with your explicit action. So nothing will happen without the user changing something. Fields won't change or links won't change. You actually need to make the move to create the change in Jira. And automation replaced most of, like, it's a good fit for most of the use cases that synchronizers provided, but some were still there that were not covered. And we'll get to those in a few minutes. So automation, so as I mentioned, it was a huge, big thing. But then we stopped developing things in that direction for a while and focused on what you can show in your structure on the columns that you actually have. We call this kind of this types of data that you can show in structure attributes. Basically, it's anything that you can show in the column, and we have several different types of attributes, which we're going to look at in a few minutes. The most powerful of them is formulas, of course, which I hope most of you have seen, the ones that allow you to build Excel-like formulas and structures. But there was still this gap. You could build this in structure, you could build this in the hierarchy, you could see it on the issue page and on dashboards, but you couldn't run a JQL query for this calculated attribute. You couldn't see it outside of structure. So that was a bit limiting. So the idea of Effectors is to allow users to take these values that you calculated in structure in real time that are always updated and allow users to push them back into Jira fields. For now, just Jira fields. So this now allows us to basically have the full complete solution and replace what we had with synchronizers almost completely as well. So let's take a look at how it works, and that will give us a better understanding. So let's build a new structure. We'll actually also have a chance to see how all these features work together. So we're going to build the structure that represents the top-down view, like the work breakdown structure. This is probably the #1 use case most of our customers have, and we're going to build it using automation. So we're going to start by pulling in our high-level issues, initiatives. So if there is anyone on the webinar who is not familiar with automation, we have a number of videos on YouTube that can give you a pretty good overview of this feature. I strongly recommend checking them out, but we won't focus on this. We'll just quickly build our structure. Let's pull in linked issues. So, and let's use level. All right, so we have our initiatives, our epics. We're gonna see our stories in a second. And then we'll add some subtasks too. So there we go. And we're gonna sort everything by rank, just to be consistent with what we have on our agile boards. So we've built our hierarchy. And as I've said, we've spent quite a lot of time building out different functionalities for visualizing data. So let me switch to the view where I edit a bunch of columns that we offer. So you can see we have quite a lot. The first few columns you see are the standard Jira fields. This is, for example, the progress, assignee. As you probably know, you can change everything in line right here in structure, which makes it really nice and easy to use for this type of tasks. But then we have a bunch of columns that are structure specific. So first column you can see here is progress, which can be configured to be calculated based on different Jira data. You can use just resolution and story points, or you can use time tracking. So depending on what you use, you can set it up in the way you want. Another popular one is totals column, the one that allows you to show totals for any numeric fields. You can see here story points are aggregated from the story and subtask level all the way to initiative level. Then we have the notes column. This one allows you to write some arbitrary notes in structure. So you are not changing anything in Jira itself. Just making some quick notes for yourself. Maybe you want to keep them private, really useful. And it's stored in structure. We also have work logged feature that allows you to calculate the time you've spent. Each particular user or group of users has spent working over a particular period of time. A fairly recent, maybe less known feature allows you to calculate time and status, or it can be status category. There are a bunch of settings here too. So again, if you haven't seen it before, I recommend checking it out. Then a bunch of smaller things like index or the number of sub-items. And then the most powerful one and the most important one, the formula feature. So formula allows you to build Excel-like formulas right in the structure. And you can use your Jira fields as variables and perform all kinds of operations with them. Like here, we're calculating latest shortest job first based on priority, watchers, voters, estimate, due dates, and other things. And we just use our custom formula to do that. And you can use formulas to get some numbers, but you can also use them together with wiki markup to get this nice looking visual markers for your data. We won't dive too deep into formulas today. It's a separate big topic, but the idea is that with formula, you can calculate all kinds of complex metrics in the hierarchy without having to export everything to Excel or some other third-party tools. And as I said, the limitation before we had effectors was that you had it in structure and you could put the structures on dashboards. You could see structure on the issue page. But for example, you still couldn't query against formula results. And that was limiting quite a bit. So effectors are designed to solve this problem. And let's see how they work in practice. So effectors are essentially another type of automation, and you add them through the automation button. So you can use them in different scenarios. You can use them to, like I said, calculate some value, write it back. Let's actually start with this example. So for example, here, as we can see, we have our story points on the stories and subtasks level, but our epics don't have any values. But we can write a formula that will give us the value for the story points. Let's actually switch to a more compact view, so we don't have as many columns. Let me remove this too. And so let's add story points. And now let's a simple formula that gives us the calculation of story points totals. Formula, and all we need is the sum of right. Okay, so again, you can see there is no value for any of the story of the epics itself, but we can see the aggregation. 39 is what's coming from all the children. And again, as I've mentioned, if something changes underneath, you can see that the formula value is recalculated in real time. So now our goal is to write it back into story points because we want to see this calculated value for our epics in actual Jira field. So to do that, we're gonna add the effector. And you can see currently there is just one type of effectors attribute to issue field. So it means we can take any value from some structure column and write it back into Jira field. In this case, we can as you add this effector, you can choose something standard or some recently used or used in columns. Here we can see our formula that we've just built for aggregation of story points. We choose which field we want to write to. So we want story points. And here we can add additional filter, which issues should be affected by this rule. So let's use type equals epic, right? So with this, we're gonna only update epics and not gonna touch our initiatives because maybe it's not relevant. And we can choose if we wanna send email notifications or not. So we can just save it if we don't wanna run it right away, or we can click save and run. And then you're gonna see the screen where you can also choose whether you wanna preview these changes or not. And as we click run, we'll first see what's gonna change. And you can see the list of all the epics that's gonna be changed and the new value that's gonna be assigned to story points field for each of them. If you have a long list of tickets, there are gonna be pages down here, so you can just scroll through those pages. And you can apply these changes to a number of selected issues, or you can apply it to everything. So let's apply to all. And as it starts running, you will see this screen. You can minimize it if you want. Oh, that was too fast. But basically it will be shown down here with the progress bar. And you can see the results. Now our epics actually have the correct values set as the story points based on the formula. Important thing though, it's not, effectors run just once when you run them. So it's not continuously updating this value. So if I change something here, let's say for the story, you can see that the formula value changed, but the effector stayed the same. So if we want to get the latest result, we will have to run this effector again. So we can choose run here. We can run it again. You can see that only one issue is going to be changed because the rest stayed the same. Apply all, and it gets updated. So you can run this in many different structures, and to have some control over the effectors that you're running, we have a manage effectors page, which you can access right from this little screen, or you can actually click structure menu and go to manage effectors. And on this page, you will see the list of all the effectors that ran. And the good thing, you can actually revert the actions of these effectors. So if you want, you can click revert. And let's see. No. There you go. They just disappeared. These values that we assigned previously as a result of reverting an effector. So you can also see the progress of all these effectors on this page. So let's run it again. The idea is that this page is more for Jira admins who need to be in control. We can just run for everyone. Obviously, if you are changing values for thousands of tickets, it can take some time. And it's important to be able to stop this process if, for whatever reason, you need that. And you'll be able to do it from this page. Again, in my example, everything happens too fast, so we don't have a chance to do it, but that option is there. All right, so this is just one example. Another scenario that we see is when you want to use it not just for writing, essentially you're still writing the values from a formula, for example, back into Jira field, but conceptually it's slightly different. So sometimes you want to automate some things, and you can use automation for Jira or script runner or something else. But we also offer this ability to do some kind of automation-like tasks. So for example, if we look at the assignees, we can see that our subtasks don't have any assignee. And what we may want to do is assign the subtask to the same person the parent is assigned to. And again, there are different ways to do it in Jira, but with effectors, you can achieve the same. So let's add another effector. And here, so you can actually select one of the existing columns, or you can just write the formula right in the effector. Again, we're going to use formula. So what we want is we want parent assignee to be written into assignee field. And we only want to do it for subtasks. So again, we write the jQuery query that limits the scope. And again, we can save and run. We will review the changes. Again, you can see all the list of tickets that are going to be changed. Apply all. And you can see our subtasks got assigned to the same person the parent is assigned to. So again, the concept is the same, but we're looking at it from a slightly different angle. So let's take a look at a couple of other examples. It's really useful for when you use together with our Gantt chart. Again, I'm sure some of you are using our Gantt charts too. So let's switch to this view. And with our Gantt chart, it can be used in several different scenarios. It can be more traditional planning. It can be more high-level planning. It can be agile planning. So I'm going to use two examples here. So in this case, we have a number of tasks which are all scheduled based on the dependencies between them, as you can see. And if we look at Jira dates, there are no start and finish dates for any of them. That's because, again, like I said, we're not relying on dates here. We're just showing them based on the dependencies. And as you can see, if one task gets delayed, the other one gets moved forward. But these start and finish dates are calculated by the Gantt chart, and they're shown here in the Gantt. So these are the values that Gantt calculates itself. And again, you can see if I move, for example, this task here, the dates updated, but again, not written back into Jira. And for many customers, that's what they wanted. And now with effectors, that's actually pretty easy to do. So let's add a couple of effectors to the structure. What we're going to do, we're going to use Gantt attributes, Gantt start and finish date, and write them to Jira fields. So start date, and we're going to do it for everything. I will save this one for now, and I'll add another one right away for finish date. We want a Gantt finish date. We want to write it into Jira finish date. Right. And again, we want to do it for all of those. And now I can actually, so I can run effectors by clicking this button here, but there is also an easier way to do it. I can run all the effectors that I have, just clicking this little button here. And as I click it, again, it offers me to review all the suggested changes. And you can see both effectors are shown here. I have my finish date updates and start date updates. And we can apply all, acknowledge. And now you can see these values were actually written back into Jira and are present in Jira custom fields, start and finish dates. Another scenario with Gantt, which we've been asked about, and I believe which will be fairly popular, is when you want to get the updates based on resource leveling. So we have resource leveling feature in the Gantt chart. So let's take a look at the resources. 1 second. Oh, okay. It's actually, it's this one. And okay, we have team structure currently overallocated, and maybe we want to create a few more overallocations for other teams. So we can run now our resource leveling for all resources. The Gantt will add some leveling delays to certain tasks. As you can see here, if you click the task, there is leveling delay added by the Gantt chart. Again, it's calculated, but it doesn't, when you do resource leveling, it does not update Jira fields, start and finish dates. And with Effectors, we can actually now, let's say we ran resource leveling, we're happy with the result. We want to write the dates that got calculated as the result back into Jira, and we're going to run our Effectors again. And now the dates calculated by Gantt during the resource allocation are written back into Jira. There is one caveat though, so this solution is not perfect yet. We'll need to figure out how to kind of implement it in a more usable and nicer way in Gantt. The leveling delay is still there, so we'll need to just go back here and reset leveling delays for all resources. Now we have the correct image. So this one extra step, we'll figure out how to get rid of it, but it's already usable and you can already use it. So yeah, these are a few examples. We have a few shorter videos which show how these features work. You can share them with your colleagues or, well, use them for your onboarding materials if you want to introduce Effectors for your teams. I wanted to talk a little bit more about what makes Effectors useful and what are some of the things you need to remember about, and also about some plans. So let me switch back to my presentation. So what are the things that Effectors give us? So first of all, as I've mentioned, they kind of fill this gap between formulas, automation, and give you the ability to bring everything back into Jira. You can query things with JQL now, and basically you have full control of your data. It also can be used as an alternative solution to calculated fields, because you have script runner, you have PowerScript. This is one more option that you now have. And a few of the things it gives that are special for Effectors is, first of all, you can write these formulas without having to know any scripting languages. Again, if you haven't tried formulas before, please take a look. They are very much like Excel formulas, and if you've done any formulas in Excel, you'll figure it out pretty quickly. And if you have any questions, you can always contact our support. But again, for an average user, this is way easier to build than a proper script. And as you could see, I could run it right from the structure, so I don't need admin permissions to set up anything. I can just do it myself. So any, let's say, project manager can set up what he or she needs and just run it as necessary. So again, but there are also some some things which can be an advantage or disadvantage depending on how you look at it. So they're not updated in real time, unlike, let's say, calculated like scripted fields. So you would actually need to run the Effector to write those changes back into Jira. And that was a conscious decision. We're trying to prevent some heavy performance load that can be associated with this. Because if you can imagine, you can have a structure with 10 or 20,000 items, and if you're going to be updating all those issues all the time, it can actually start causing performance problems. So having it run on demand sort of gives users more control on where they want these updates to happen and when not. Yeah, you should remember that. And again, performance considerations are just something to keep in mind. If you have a huge structure and you want to run some effectors for it, please understand that you are actually updating all those issues. And if there are multiple updates happening at the same time, you're going to give some extra load to your Jira. So be mindful of that, and you can expect some performance overhead, just as if you would do any kind of other bulk change in Jira. So what's coming next for effectors? You could see we only have one type right now, which allows you to sync Jira attribute back to Jira field. So first thing that is coming is status rollup. It can be implemented even now. You can write a formula that will calculate the correct status based on children's statuses, but it's kind of cumbersome and not so intuitive. So we'll have like a preset specifically for statuses. Plus right now it will not change the status if you require some field be filled out on transition. So we're going to handle that as well. And another big type of effector will be the effector that allows you to update links. So if you create a structure manually, or you visualized one type of relationship and you want to build another link type to replace it, for example, you'll be able to quickly do that with effectors. So you'll be able to create new links by running an effector. Okay, and I think that was everything planned for today to show and tell. And I'll be happy to take questions from our participants.
Thank you, Eugene. If you would just advance it to the next slide for this next portion while we do the Q&A. All right. So the first question we have from the audience is, what happens, this was while you were talking, showing the first example, I believe, of effectors. What happens if the story points are updated in Jira on the issue page rather than the structure view? How will that work with an effector?
So again, it will work just fine. It will take the latest value at the time of effector running. So it doesn't matter where you change these values. Actually, if you go to the structure itself, let's switch to our compact view. You can see the story points here, and let's say I can change it here. Oh wait, I'm changing the formula. I can change it here, but I can also go to the story itself and change it there, and structure will just show me the updated value right away. So it doesn't really matter where you do it, because structure always works with real-time data, or almost real-time. There you go. So it doesn't matter where you change it. As soon as you open the structure, you get the real-time value, and the formula is updated as well. So I hope that answers the question.
Okay. Next question, someone's asking whether or not effectors can be run on a schedule instead of manually.
Good question. We actually considered that option. Again, mostly for performance reasons, we decided not to go there, at least right now. We'll see how things work out, how people will start using them. We do have plans for integrating with automation for Jira. And that's probably going to be the best way to do it, because you'll be able to build more complex rules, but also you'll be able to do something like timed running, like every hour or every 4 hours or whatever makes sense. Or maybe every morning, run it before everyone comes to the office. That actually could be a good solution, so that you run it at night, especially if you have to run updates for a large number of tickets. And then in the morning, everyone has the fresh, updated view.
Okay. Next question is, the copy attributes from a parent to children only works when the children are subtasks, or that's a question, or can we update other issues as well?
I'm not sure I fully understand. Okay. can you reference another issue which is not its parent or child? I guess that is the question.
Yes.
Interesting. I can't think of the way to do it right away, but if you can send us an email, we'll think about it later. How basically you want to reference a particular ticket somewhere and extract some value from some field or some formula there. Okay, this will require a bit of thinking. Let's think later.
Yeah, we can mark who asked this question, Eugene, and make it easy for you to follow up with them.
Yeah, perfect.
Next question is there any sort of a safety max that can be set by the administrator? A number of effectors per structure or a max entities for a structure to run against, et cetera?
Good question. Again, I will need to double check. If I remember correctly, we have the same mechanism for effectors that we have for other types of automation that will stop the process if it's taking for too long. And I don't know if you guys have seen this feature in action. If you have large structures, you might have. The way it works, you set a certain threshold for how long each rule can run. And if it exceeds the threshold, it stops. So there is no limit on the number of effectors that you add to a structure, but you can limit how long they can run. So if someone created some crazy effector that makes so many changes that it's causing huge performance impact, it will just stop. And the admin will be able to see it, review it, and fix that.
So this is a good follow-on question, Eugene. Is there a way to undo changes if you make a mistake?
Yeah, actually, so if you go to manage effectors, you can revert the entire update. I believe, I don't know if we've already rolled it out. The ability to roll off like some individual ones, maybe not. But yeah, basically reverting it here will take you back to the previous state of all those fields. Let's see. So I just clicked it. The process was created. Again, we need to refresh the page to see the process. So we've just reverted this update of finish and start dates.
Okay. Is there a way to set permission on who can use effectors?
Oh, sorry, just going back. You can actually revert individual ones. Yep, there they are. You just need to click the ID of the effector and you will see all the individual changes here, and you can choose the ones you want to revert. Sorry, yeah, Dave.
So the next question was, is there a way to set permission on who gets to use effectors and who doesn't?
So currently permissions are the same as for automation. So if you have access to automation, you can create and run effectors. I guess it could make sense to, oh, actually there is a separate setting as well. Sorry, I'm not. So if you go to structure administration section, you have a separate permission to execute effectors and configure. So those are separate, and you can actually, so in structure, you have always the option of, even if you don't have the structure itself, you can just write JQL query and see some values here. So, that's interesting. Now, disregard that. I thought that's something else. So yeah, you can set permissions who can run them and who can create them.
So we have someone who wants to know more about structure.gantt, but I think Bill, we'll just follow up, schedule a follow-up meeting with you so we can show you more of structure.gantt. Can you briefly go over the effectors progress bar at the bottom of the page again? I'm sorry if I missed it. I read
absolutely.
As 100% during the webinar, but if I understand you correctly, the progress bar represents progress of the effectors. I just want to confirm.
Correct. Yeah. If you have a long-running effector that makes multiple updates, once you minimize that window you were looking at, you can track the progress here, and well, basically see how far in completion it is. And you can also click this little link here with effectors and go to Manage Effectors page, or see the status of all the effectors that are currently running.
Okay. And Martin, I think this is from Martin. I think we answered this question, but you might want to elaborate, Eugene. He was asking about the ability to run effectors automatically in some way, or setting up triggers that cause the effectors to run automatically.
Mm-hmm. Well, again, so the current thinking is to integrate with automation for Jira. It's not kind of set in stone, and we haven't started working on it yet, but that's the idea. So if you have any other suggestions, again, please send us an email and we can discuss this in more details. Maybe you can explain to us your use case, provide some additional information so we can think of what would be the best solution.
Right. Next question from the audience: do updated issues that are updated via effectors trigger an issue update event and re-index the issue for each affected issue?
Good question. My guess is yes, but I may need to double check. We do have certain, so by default in structures, when you make updates to issue links, for example, we don't trigger the reindex. So if you want, and this is mostly for performance reasons, so you don't have to do it every time. There is a setting in structure settings to change that. I will need to double check with effectors, actually, yeah. My guess, it does trigger, but again, if not, we probably have, or we can create the setting that will force that.
All right. Our next questioner is asking about a recorded version of the session. And just to remind everyone, yes, there will be a recorded version available via our YouTube channel. We'll talk more about that in a second, but yes, we promise to send you a note and let you know about when it's available. Anyone who registered for the webinar will get that note. This question was already answered as well. Is there a way to restrict the user group for effectors? As Eugene said a moment ago, it's dependent upon your privileges to use or not use structure automation. Next question is there a Java or REST API for effectors, Eugene?
Good question. I don't know the answer to that, but we can follow up on that later. And also it would be interesting to know what exactly you want to do with those. So let's chat further afterwards.
Yeah, and this applies to everyone. If we didn't answer your question fully today, we'll follow up with you. Or if we don't get to your question for some reason, we'll follow up with you, don't worry. Next question on the Gantt chart. Some of the functionality you presented today, minus the effectors, I've not seen before. What version of structure.gantt were you using?
I believe that was 2.3, and we're currently working on 2.4, which should be out fairly soon. But yeah, we develop our Gantt chart pretty actively, so please keep an eye on the updates, because we release sometimes fairly large features. Yeah, again, we can follow up on that and discuss Gantt in more details separately.
In fact, this question was asked by Joseph. Joseph, just so you know, in the forthcoming 2.4 release, there's even more capabilities related to effectors and some other things as well. So I think you do want to take a look at upgrading to the latest version of Gantt.
And just to comment on that, to be clear, so effectors, currently there is no special functionality designed for Gantt and effectors to work together, but Gantt chart offers a number of attributes itself. So you can actually see those. If you type Gantt, you can see Gantt finish, milestone date, progress, start date, and type, like what type of task it is. And we actually have more coming. So I think in 2.4, we'll add a few other attributes that Gantt has. The idea is that, like I said, some of the values are calculated by Gantt chart. So they're not stored anywhere except in the Gantt chart. If you click the task, you see a number of different things, like leveling delay, for example. If you run resource leveling, this is the value calculated by Gantt chart, and it's stored in the Gantt chart. So you'll be able to show it in the column I think in 2.4 or maybe in the next one, and a number of other similar attributes. And then those can be used with effectors.
And this is a follow-up related to this a little bit, Eugene. Is there a preferred upgrade path for Gantt? Like, do I need to upgrade my version of structure first before I upgrade to the latest version of Gantt?
That would be usually a good idea, because we try to release them together whenever there is, especially with larger, with major versions. You can find all that information in the release notes, which version of structure each Gantt version requires. So you can double check. Sometimes they will work just fine, and we can't test all the versions with all the versions. So again, if you have a question about particular versions, just contact our support at support@almworks.com, and we'll be happy to give you all the details.
Next question, Eugene. We have quite a few, and I'm sure we won't get through all of them. So as I mentioned, everyone, don't worry. We'll answer you offline if we don't get to it today. Next question, Eugene, is can we run effectors from the Manage Effectors page?
Good question. I'm not sure. Let's see. My guess is not, but that's actually a good point. That could be a nice feature. Yeah, I like that. We should.
All right.
We'll discuss and get back to you. Yep, go ahead.
Yeah, that's okay. Yeah, we'll get back to this person. And thanks for that suggestion, William. Next question is, this isn't quite related to effectors specifically, but with so many possibilities in structure, are there any plans for ALM Works to offer templates, structure templates?
We are considering those. Again, if you can get back to us with more specifics, that would actually be very helpful, because the tricky part, the most difficult part, is to understand what templates people want and need. And again, since structure can support any kind of configuration in Jira, it's hard to make one, let's say, wizard that will magically understand how your Jira is configured and give you the correct structures and settings. But yeah, let's discuss that offline, and if you can give us some examples of what you're looking for,
in fact,
that will be very helpful.
If the attendee is still listening in, that was an anonymous attendee, so it's going to be up to you to get back to us on that one. Next question. I think you've answered the first part of this question. Does the Jira admin have the ability to disable effectors for some group or for some structure? But you may want to elaborate on that. And the related question is, do we have an option to monitor structure effectors if they're creating a heavy load?
So yeah, in terms of permissions, you can set who can run and who can create effectors. In terms of monitoring the load, so there is no simple way to do it. We do have the performance audit log file that you can look at, and pretty sure there should be some information on effectors there too. So we do have some plans to make it more user-friendly. If you for those who love to dig in, there is this performance audit log feature that shows you the summary of all the structures that you have, the time that automation runs, and I'm pretty sure effectors should be there too. but to be honest, I haven't checked it myself yet. If not, we'll probably add them there. But that's a good point. Yeah, we're gonna think what we can do around that to maybe show you the longest running effectors or something like that. That's a good request.
And there are several related questions, Eugene, about setting up notifications for Jira admins when people are creating effectors or the effectors are having an impact on performance. So I'll just group these together after the webinar so that we can look at them and get back to people individually.
Sounds great. Yep, thank you.
This question was already asked about the API. We're going to look into that for everyone who asked it. Can structures be developed by a project team at the project level without system administrator credentials?
Yeah, absolutely. And this is, as I've mentioned, this is one thing that makes effectors in particular attractive. You don't have to have administrator permissions to create and run them. So basically, all you need is to be able to change those issue fields in Jira. If you can, let's say, edit assignees for your project, you'll be able to run the effector and update assignees based on the rule that you define.
Are there, to your knowledge, Eugene, were there any updates to the formula feature in Structure 6?
Not in Structure 6. In 6.1, we do have a few improvements. So, yeah, but just keep an eye on the release notes. In 6.1, there will be a couple of updates. It will take a while to explain the idea. It's related to using JQL in formulas. So there will be a way to basically check if a certain JQL query is true or not and use it in the formula. That's the biggest update in 6.1 that is coming for formulas. Oh, and the ability to actually, again, this is fairly detailed, but if someone is like formula power user, previously it wasn't possible to run the formula both, let's say, up and down, like use the value from a parent in some calculations for the children. And in the 6.1 release, I think it will be possible. Again, we'll elaborate in release notes and give a few examples of how that can be useful.
So we're running up against the end of the hour here. So I'm just going to read one more question and then we'll look at the next step slides again, Eugene.
Yeah, absolutely.
In the demo, you showed a health column, and I assume that was built with a formula. Could you show that one more time and talk a little bit about that column?
Yeah, so this is built using Wiki Markup, and Wiki Markup is nice, but not so easy to use. You're gonna see it, don't be scared. It's basically, it's a panel with some settings for images and everything. Doesn't look so pretty, but I mean, you can figure it once and then you can reuse it, and we'll be happy to share this particular formula with you, for example. I guess we have this person's contact, right, Dave?
Yeah, in fact, it's one of our, a customer that we know well, so we'll follow up with you, Alexei.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right. All right, so let's go back to the next step slide, Eugene, so we can just close out real quick. As we mentioned a couple of times, you'll get an email if you registered or attended this webinar to let you know that the recording is now available on our YouTube channel. On that channel, we do have a playlist for all of our webinars. So there's a webinar archive playlist that you can find there. And there's a lot of other things you'll find on our YouTube channel. We've gotten very active in recent months with new feature updates, how-to videos, and other things that I think a lot of you will find useful. So we encourage you to keep an eye on our YouTube channel. We're adding more there every month. If you want to learn more about effectors, you can use this short URL, alm.works/effectors. That will take you right straight to the documentation page for effectors on the ALM Works wiki. And if you want to try out effectors for yourself, you can either download a new evaluation copy of Structure, the current version of Structure, and structure.gantt if you wish, into a sandbox environment that you have, or you can visit almworks.com And on our website, there's always a sandbox server that contains our latest versions of our products, and you can try out Effectors there. And if there's anything else at all that wasn't answered today, or you think of a question that you didn't get a chance to ask, you can send an email to webinars@almworks.com. We'll make sure your question gets to Eugene or whoever the right person is and follow up with you that way. So once again, I just want to thank everyone for joining us today. We're really glad we had you. Eugene, we had nearly all 60-something people stay with us the entire time, so there's obviously a lot of interest in this topic.
That's great.
And we want to thank everyone for participating today, including you, Eugene. Thank you.